A visit that comes at a defining moment in global geopolitics. This is Prime Minister Modi's first meeting with President Donald Trump since his return to the White House, making it one of the most closely watched diplomatic engagements of the year, and the year has just begun. Now, over the next few hours, Prime Minister Modi is going to be engaging in a series of high-profile meetings with key figures in the U.S. administration, business leaders. We'll talk about members of the Indian diaspora that are waiting their turn to just catch a glimpse of the Prime Minister. But let's break down for the viewers why this is important, what might be on the agenda. His bilateral with President Trump at the White House is expected to focus on trade, technology, defense cooperation, and a renewed push for the Quad alliance in the Indo-Pacific. We're already learning that some big announcements when we're talking about trade, when we're talking about the defense framework between these two countries is on the cards. The two leaders will also address a press conference later on, a joint statement that is expected. But the duo is also going to be addressing pressing global issues, from countering China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific to strengthening intelligence sharing on counter-terrorism and cyber security. But beyond the optics of these two, great friends, hard negotiations are on the table as well. Immigration is another major concern. Over 104 illegal Indian immigrants were recently deported. It sparked concerns within the community. Here back at home, everybody had something or the other to say in terms of the inhuman behavior that was meted out to those 104 deportees. Thousands of skilled Indian professionals in the United States, they're currently anxious about changes to work visa rules that could impact job security and the legal status. And another batch of Indian deportees from the United States is expected to land in Amritsar on the 15th of February. Another set of deportees is something that is already being talked about. Will Prime Minister Modi push for policy clarity to safeguard the Indian talent in the United States, currently treading on eggshells and very anxious grounds? But then again, you have the trade tango under Donald Trump that one has to take a look at as well. Trade and tariff concerns are front and center. Donald Trump's renewed threats of tariffs on countries he claims are quote-unquote harming the U.S. economy includes India. In the run-up to the presidential elections, he said it time and again, notifying everybody about the reciprocal tariffs that he is thinking about and mulling. With bilateral trade hitting a record $129.2 billion just last year in 2024, and India enjoying a $45.7 billion surplus when we're looking at trade between these two countries, will the Prime Minister be able to secure a fair deal, or will New Delhi have to rethink its trade strategy? Already, a Truth Social bomb is already out. He's talked about fantastic 3 weeks. The best day is today, as Donald Trump says. Reciprocal tariffs. He's likely to announce those soon as well. And just ahead of his meet with Prime Minister Modi, hours ahead of his big meeting with Prime Minister Modi, US President Donald Trump, he took to Truth Social to warn of reciprocal tariffs. Trump wrote, and I quote, take a look at this: 3 great weeks, perhaps the best ever, but today is the big one. Reciprocal tariffs with 3 exclamation marks. Make America great again. Another with a set of 3 exclamation marks. And Donald Trump is expected to announce those tariffs very, very soon. Big announcements are also expected on trade and defense after the Trump and Modi meeting. Trump officials say buying defense equipment from the United States will bring down trade deficit with India, something that Donald Trump is going to be smiling about at this point in time. Meanwhile, defense agreements and energy trade are expected to be key discussion points. India is going to be looking to strengthen its security partnership with Washington. And just after landing in Washington, Prime Minister Modi's meeting with U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, it signaled a deepening intelligence partnership. Counterterrorism, cybersecurity, and emerging threats are high on the agenda as both these countries seek to expand cooperation in a rapidly shifting security landscape. But then again, some crucial meetings that are set to take place before the entire White House schedule takes effect. A major business engagement in this visit, Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Elon Musk, the tech billionaire entrepreneur, a key advisor to President Donald Trump and head of the Department of Government Efficiency, is expected to discuss Starlink's India launch. The meeting could also touch on electric vehicles manufacturing. Elon Musk has been constantly asking for a level playing field when it comes to taxations on the electronic vehicle market in India. Tesla looking at India as a potential investment destination as well. And of course, there's the grand spectacle of Modi engaging with the Indian diaspora, a community that has been instrumental in strengthening India-U.S. ties. With over 5.4 million Indian Americans and 350,000 Indian students in the United States, expectations are high. Will the visit bring new opportunities for the diaspora, which is very closely watching all these diplomatic and high-stakes developments in Washington, D.C.? So, what will be the key takeaways from this high-stakes visit? Will Modi and Trump strike a new trade deal? Can India navigate the tariff tango under Donald Trump? What does this visit mean for India's role in the Indo-Pacific? And how does it impact the broader global order? We have a power-packed panel of experts, former diplomats and top journalists to break it down all for you. Stay with us on this rolling coverage as we bring you every angle, every detail, and every major development from Prime Minister Modi's big visit to the United States. Modi-Trump meet. Let's break this down for you. Joining me here on the broadcast is my colleague Sandeep Unithan, editor News9 Plus, Aditya Rajkal, another one of my colleagues with us on the broadcast. A very warm welcome to you, executive editor, strategic affairs and national security, Ambassador Manju Seth. What a pleasure to have you with us on the broadcast today. Former Indian diplomat and distinguished fellow, Forum of Global Studies, Professor Umu Salma Baba, Center for European Studies, School of International Studies, also with us on the broadcast here. You know, Aditya, I'm going to quickly get the snowball rolling. Let's come to you first. Prime Minister Modi, among the first world leaders, I think after Benjamin Netanyahu, the Japanese counterpart, and of course Jordanian King Abdullah II. He's the fourth leader to visit the United States. Only 3 weeks under Donald Trump 2.0. What does this signify? Because we need to talk about the significance of the Blair, House. Already some movements and developments over there. Black cars and cavalcade doing the rounds over there. What does this mean for big announcements that we're expecting on the trade, immigration, defense framework? But before that, what does this signify for the India-U.S. ties? Two good friends, from Namaste Trump to Howdy Modi. Where have we come to today exactly?
Well, this is truly significant. As you rightly pointed out in your introduction, Kabir, it's high stakes. It's also win-win situation, an opportunity for a win-win situation for both India and the United States. In many ways, during the last presidency of Donald Trump, there was a chemistry, there was a bonhomie that was developed between Modi and Trump, and that certainly would be taken forward. In many ways also, their priorities for their respective countries are similar. You know, Trump has been emphasizing on America first, and here Narendra Modi has also been emphasizing on India first, on Make in India, similar such initiatives in both these countries. But this time around, with Trump coming in, he has had a very significantly hard approach. In the very first few hours, he signed several executive orders. Two of the most significant ones were on the trade tariffs that he announced, close to 10% to 25% on Canada, on China, on Mexico, and several others. The illegal immigration is another significant issue which would be discussed. Obviously, already 104 of those illegal immigrants, Indians in fact, have come back. And I'm being told that the Indian government has already approved 500 more, close to 500 more names, and that would be subsequently coming in a couple of flights in a few days from now. So there would be hard bargaining, there would be hard negotiations that will be underway. But you need to also understand that one, there is a bonhomie, but otherwise there is a strategic alliance also between India and the United States. For instance, Michael Waltz, the NSA of United States, has been a crucial India votary. He has supported Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Viksit Bharat agenda of 2047. He has been significant supporter of India, has attended a lot of events recently in 2023 at the Red Fort as well, and has been making the right kind of noises on the fruitful relationship that can blossom between India and the United States. I just had a conversation with a senior White House and a Trump administration official. There was a background briefing for senior journalists. And one of the significant aspects that they talked about was that a new defense framework will be discussed and approved and perhaps signed as well during this particular visit. So, immediately after the bilateral talks, we will see both Trump and Modi come, give out a joint statement, a comprehensive statement that will also include a lot of big talking points on defense as well as trade. Trade tariffs have been talking, something big on the agenda of the Trump administration. They also said that these tariffs will be on the BRICS nations, where India is a significant part, and there is a off balance right now. So they want to balance it. And how do they want to balance it? They want to balance it in such a manner that more defense equipment is bought by India from the United States. My colleague Sandeep will, of course, reflect on that in greater detail. How could that shape up in the next few months and years? But many are looking at it in a very, very negative manner and saying that, India will be, hard bargaining, but Trump will emerge as a winner. I think it will be a win-win situation for both these countries. For India, security is a top priority. Trade is a top priority. You also know that names of 12 gangsters and Khalistanis have been given for their extradition and deportation back to India. So that would be something. Intelligence gathering and technology would be something. A critical technology area would be something that would be discussed, and there would be some key points coming into it. Apart from that, briefly, I can tell you that the day will begin with a big meeting that Prime Minister Modi will have with Elon Musk, and apart from Vivek Ramaswamy, and the first meeting will be with the NSA Michael Waltz. Already after landing, as you rightly pointed out, he met Tulsi Gabbard, and that was one of her first official meetings because
That's right.
she was just confirmed hours ago by the Senate. So it's a big night, I would say, for the Indians. It's not just the Indians and Americans watching this. I think globally, people would be keenly observing what comes out of this significant meeting between Trump and Modi.
Absolutely. Beijing is, you could add Beijing to that list of people who are going to be very closely watching these kind of developments. Sandeep, before we actually talk about the defense framework, we do need your inputs on that front as well. Trade, tariff, defense, the new framework, what will it constitute? And when we're looking at India put forth the right kind of deal that Donald Trump actually requires, as part of those big announcements. Let's hold our horses on that front. I still want to understand the pure optics of these two leaders coming together, the handshakes and the warm hugs. Let's talk about that just a little bit. Ambassador Manju Seth, the Modi and Trump bonhomie, there is a personal rapport that everybody can see. I'm sure tomorrow the headlines and the newspapers are going to cover it all. But how much does this personal chemistry, is going to be able to translate into actual policy win that we're going to see? Just like Aditya mentioned, right after that bilateral, we're going to look at a crucial key joint statement that is going to be delivered by these two global leaders.
Absolutely. The bonhomie and the rapport between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump will be one element, one contributing factor to a positive outcome and a mutually beneficial outcome. But it is not the only one, and it cannot be a deciding factor. Of course, when there is something which is stuck and they're not able to find a solution to it, yes, then the bonhomie and the rapport and the good relationship does help to navigate and to negotiate in a positive, mutually win-win situation. So I believe that during this visit, yes, the bonhomie will be on display, but both sides will have to be clear that their interests are not compromised. And I think President Trump has been announcing even during his campaign that he will, and he's been naming India every time, and for tariffs, so he will ensure that at least the optics, at least it is clear that he has got some concessions for America, for American goods, or for imports into America. But at the same time, we also wherever we have some leeway, we will have to, it'll be a give and take situation. It can't be a one-way street. But yes, since the trade balance is heavily in our favor, maybe we would have to consider where we'll have the least damage, and I think those products will be considered for reduction in tariffs. So by India. So I think it will be a mutually beneficial thing in the long run, because then, we cannot just say that we can't be, rigid. And neither, I believe, the US will be rigid, because this partnership, both sides recognize the importance of the strategic partnership, the global partnership, global strategic partnership that both sides enjoy. And both sides understand the importance of the relationship. And I don't think this is going to, any issue will be allowed to impact the strength of this partnership, the strength of this relationship. So going forward, I think this visit is very significant, and it will have a number of positive outcomes and a win-win situation for both sides. On some issues, we'll have to give. On some issues, the US will have to give, I'm sure. That's how negotiations take place. And the bonhomie, I think, will facilitate proper negotiations and fruitful negotiations.
Fair enough. Interesting points, Ambassador. Sandeep, I think we're getting visuals of the NSA Mike Waltz. He's already arrived at the Blair House. I'm not too sure whether the first meeting with Mike Waltz is going to take place at the Blair House or not. Maybe Aditya can step in and help us out on that particular front. But I do have a reaction of Mike Waltz. This is back in 2023. Mike Waltz talking about Prime Minister Modi and, of course, the India-U.S. ties. Listen in, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mike Waltz back in 2023.
Well, it was an amazing honor to be there. This is where Nehru famously raised the tricolor and on Indian Independence Day on August 15th, and to stand there in front of the Red Fort to see Modi give his address to his nation was an amazing honor. And I thought it was also incredible to hear him lay out a vision for India to be a fully developed nation by 2047, the 100th year anniversary, and his plan to achieve that. I thought it was a very strong speech, and it was an honor to be there.
So you heard the man. Sandeep, I think cybersecurity, counterterrorism, that immediate meeting with Tulsi Gabbard, of course, congratulating her because less than 24 hours ago, she was selected for the U.S. Director of National Intelligence's post. And, some more pro-India voices in the shape of Pete Hegseth, who we already have confirmed, and Kash Patel. He's, going through his own grilling session as we speak. Prime Minister Modi, Donald Trump, they've called each other friends, bhais, brothers. But Donald Trump has also criticized India for the high tariffs. He's already dropped those truth social bombs. How are you looking at these developments? The first meeting with NSA Mike Waltz, what might be on the agenda over there?
Well, Kabir, there's a lot on the plate when the two leaders meet. But, the thing is that I was just listening to all the statements our panelists were making, Aditya, Ambassador Seth. The thought struck me that, this is possibly the first White House that we are seeing which is so full of pro-India officials. I mean, literally every cabinet member of the Trump administration is pro-India, whether it is...
My apologies to cut you short over there, just to interject for a little quick second. That's the NSA, Mike Waltz, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I think that first crucial meeting has in fact taken place. Back to you, Sandeep. Do complete your thoughts. Just wanted the viewers to know these are live visuals of NSA, United States, Mike Waltz with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Back to you, Sandeep.
I mean, look at it, whether it is Pete Hegseth or the US NSA, it's Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, the entire Trump cabinet is solidly for a India-US relationship. I cannot remember the last time that we saw such a pro-India US administration. And it would be a shame if we didn't get something great out of this, because literally every member of the Trump administration, Kabir, is rooting for India in their own ways. Whether it is the people of Indian origin who are in the cabinet, or whether it is the US NSA that Trump is just shaking hands with. He's a former Green Beret, a very, very tough soldier. The Green Berets, as you know, are US Special Forces. He's had several combat tours. So he is someone who knows who his friends and his enemies are. So, Kabir, that's the larger takeaway, from apart from the bonhomie that you just see on display in that file photograph, on the file footage from Prime Minister Modi and President Trump's earlier meetings, they have a wonderful chemistry. And this is unlike any other chemistry between any other leader that Prime Minister Modi shares. It is a really warm, genuine, it comes from the heart. You can see it right there. It's on full display. And you're probably going to see more of it a couple of hours from now. So, the interesting thing is that while President Trump talks of India, he always says he has a problem with India and tariffs and trade, and he calls India tariff kings. He said that in the past. But when it comes to Prime Minister Modi, he has the warmest things to say about Prime Minister Modi, and the fact that they have such a warm relationship. Howdy Modi, Namaste Trump, all of that. It all boils down to this personal chemistry between the two leaders. And I think we're going to see more of that today. And this chemistry, as Ambassador Seth was saying, is going to help us navigate the other tricky issues that you've just listed. Aditya was just speaking about, the illegal immigrants, the tariffs, the defense deals that which the United States wants us to buy. There are many imponderables out there. There might be a couple of surprises, just like the one that Trump has just thrown at us on Truth Social with those multiple exclamation marks, tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. And of course, the fact that he wants India to buy more from the United States. But, once again, it is going to be that bonhomie between the two leaders. It's going to be that enormous amount of goodwill that the Trump administration has for India, for Prime Minister Modi, for other members of the cabinet, and for the larger perspective of the Indo-U.S. strategic relationship that is here to stay. Because I think most of the cabinet members in the Trump administration know who the real enemy is. They know it is China. And if they have to take on China, the only country in the neighborhood that is actually doing that is India. And therefore, they're batting more enthusiastically for a pro-India Trump administration. And that is likely going to be the big picture of what we're going to see today. So you might have all these little niggles of, trade and tariffs and energy and, buy more from us. But the big picture remains intact. That the fact is that the US has decided several decades ago that India-US, that is a strategic partnership that is really going to define this relationship well into the middle of the 21st century if they are to take on a rising China, which is a near-peer adversary. So literally, India is the only trick in the book that the United States has currently. But there could be another one, which is what Trump unveiled a couple of hours ago, which is to give Russia full control of the war in Ukraine, where they have pretty much thrown Ukraine under the bus. They have allowed the Russian Federation to keep what it has captured in the last 3 years of fighting. And they're looking at cutting their losses from Europe and focusing on China. And the big game here, literally, Kabir, is for the United States to partner with India to take on a rising China. Kabir.
All right, all of those aspects to take a look at as well. Major General Sanjay Mestan, defense and geopolitical expert, also with us on the broadcast. A very warm welcome to you, General. But I am going to invite Professor Salma Bawa to come in for their inputs on this front as well. Professor, already people have started talking about the tariffs, the defense diplomacy. What do you think, beyond the optics, what do you think is going to be the biggest takeaway? And then we'll start, peeling off the layers of all that we can decode in the run-up to that key, crucial meet between Prime Minister and Donald Trump. Over to you, Professor. Key and tangible takeaways from this crucial bilateral.
Thank you, Kabir. I think let me just frame it in the terms of the larger geopolitical shift which is happening. And looking at, in the first 3 weeks, whose calling card has the most power, the most bang for the buck in Washington, D.C. And in that, I think India could, be very happy that we are at number 4 right over there. It says a lot about what the past is, bringing to the current on the table, on the agenda. But more importantly, I think in terms of the situation of multiple theaters of war, of a lot of contestation, I think partnerships are up not only for re-examining what they have brought in the past, but I think how they're going to be renewed and taken forward. So I think that is the first and foremost in the fact that India gets to be in Washington, less than under a month, tells you that how important is this investment in the bilateral. And that bilateral definitely should be read with the other things which are happening, as to correctly pointed out, what is happening on the war in Ukraine, and then subsequently also what is happening in the Middle East. In all of this, I think the fact that Paul Kapoor has been named as, coming in as the Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia is a very welcome development. So I think I would really endorse what Sandeep said on that point about look at the number of, India faces. Let's not forget they are Americans first at this point. But I think it's also indicative of what the India story over the decades has played out, this large diaspora, in terms of translating today into an important part of the political decision-making apparatus. I think that is something one has to look at as Indians, not merely in high-tech, not merely in Silicon Valley, but people who have now become part of the administration, who are going to be co-designing, what is the agenda which is happening. Point number two, I think there a lot has been said about, the personal equation between both the leaders. And I think one has to really put it on the table. That is extremely important. You've seen pictures of leaders who kind of, avoid any kind of even, eye contact. And here it's the opposite. And that, I think, is a very good sign. But let's look at what else is there. The fact that President Trump has already put tariff squarely on the table, even before coming into office, is a clear indication that, a deal making has to be done, as you've also pointed out. So India has also gone to Washington with a list on what it would like to engage with. But remember, both sides are looking at strengthening the partnerships. This is not about not having, when the presser is going to take place later in the day, before that dinner in the evening, it's going to be extremely important to highlight defense is right at the top. How is U.S. looking at reducing the trade deficit with India would mean that India needs to buy more.
Absolutely
and that's
right.
extremely important. So technology, trade is there, cyber is there, in terms of security, discussion on terrorism, the fact. Look at who is already on the calling list coming to meet Prime Minister Modi is important. Intelligence already right there. As you've just pointed out, you've got Mike Waltz coming in. So this is indicative of how it's going to lead up to the evening on extremely critical
a plethora of balancing acts, I think, Professor. That's what we're looking at. More than high-stakes diplomacy, it's more like a balancing act that Prime Minister has to do on a couple of different verticals and strike that perfect balance amongst all of those. It is not going to be an easy task. I'm going to request all my panelists to stay on with us. A lot more movement that we're picking right outside the Blair House, but we need to quickly dip into a commercial breather here. We'll be back. There's lots more to decode. Trade and tariff and the Donald Trump tango that's coming right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
मैं और आप कोई फर्क नहीं है हमें।
6 needed of the last ball.
जब ताक लेते हैं अपनी मंजिल को तो उसे पाने के लिए कमर तोड़ मेहनत करते हैं, पर कभी-कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच
House is not in your budget, sir. Sorry.
रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
Your promise is IGI certified. Your ambition is IGI certified. 14-step grading process, 50 years of trust. IGI Trust Certified.
ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಯೋಚಿಸಬೇಡಿ. ಪ್ರತಿ ತಿಂಗಳು ನಾನು ಕಪಿಲ್ ಚಿಟ್ಸ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೂಡಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಆ ದುಡ್ಡಿಂದ ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ ಕನಸನ್ನ ಈಡೇರಿಸಬಹುದು.
ಕಪಿಲ್ ಚಿಟ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕನಸುಗಳಿಗೆ ಸಾಕಾರ.
Welcome back. Our rolling coverage on that crucial meet and bilateral talk between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump. It continues here on News9. With me on the broadcast, Sandeep Unnithan, editor News9 Plus, Aditya Rajkol, executive editor Strategic Affairs and National Security. Both my colleagues with me here. Ambassador Manju Seth, former Indian diplomat and distinguished fellow, Forum for Global Studies. Professor Umu Salma Baba, Center for European Studies, School of International Studies, and Major General Sanjay Mestan, defense and geopolitical expert. All of them with me on the broadcast. A very warm welcome to you. You know, Aditya, I'm going to quickly come to you next. We're looking at some more developments taking place right outside, the Blair House. And when we're talking about the Blair House, its significance and its importance, Sandeep, I'm going to quickly come to you first because we need some, quirky trivia about the Blair House. We know that Jawaharlal Nehru, we know that Indira Gandhi, they've, been situated and placed as guests at the Blair House. But what other than that? We know it's interconnected township. You've got some lavish, sprawling, rooms in there, a well-functioning salon as well. What else?
Well, Blair House is the guest house of the U.S. State Department, and it's got possibly the best view of any guest house anywhere in the world. It overlooks the White House, and it's one of the most important buildings. You just mentioned it. It's actually four buildings which have been interconnected over the years. It's got more than 100 rooms, 7 lakh square feet. So a lot of rooms there. That's where all the top guests of the U.S. State Department choose to stay. And there you see the Indian flag being hoisted over there to indicate the fact that Prime Minister Modi has chosen to stay there. Of course, he's been there before. About a decade ago, when he first visited the White House, he was staying at Blair House. Many prime ministers have stayed there before. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has been there, of course. Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Interestingly, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi stayed there in 1971 when she had that very famous meeting, or rather that very infamous meeting with President Nixon and his National Security Advisor Kissinger, as possibly the lowest point in India-U.S. relations since 1947. So Blair House has seen some very interesting moments, especially in the India-U.S. Context, Kabir. It's one of those iconic little buildings outside of the White House. That's where one of the U.S. presidents, in fact, this term kitchen cabinet originated right there in Blair House, because one of the U.S. presidents, I forget who it was, came up with this concept of a kitchen cabinet, which is a set of advisors who are not your actual cabinet. I think it was President Jefferson who actually had these, who used to meet his friends there at Blair House. And one of them happened to be Mr. Blair, related to the owners of that original Blair House property. So that term kitchen cabinet actually came up in Blair House right there, that iconic building that you're looking at. So lots of moments in history, and Blair House has been witness to all of that. And interesting that Prime Minister Modi chose to stay there today and meet some of his first visitors, including the US NSA right there, Kabir.
So self-service apartments, kitchen cabinets. I think the hotel industry has a lot to, thank and give back to the former U.S. president. But, General Miston, I want you to come in on the, discussion here. We're looking at a new defense framework. That kind of announcement is going to come after that crucial meeting between the two leaders. What are you expecting? What are you looking at? We've just come from France, and now we've made our way to the United States. Emmanuel Macron and Prime Minister Modi talking about Scorpion submarines as well. They're talking about helicopter and fighter jet engines. All those deals are also on the cards. Our relationship with Russia, that is also something that people are talking about. And now that we've gone to the United States, there's some sort of deal that needs to be, coughed up. What are you expecting?
Kabir, good evening. Expectations are very high. Firstly, let's be very clear. President Trump, all of us understand he's a businessman, and of course he's a transactional person. And therefore, for him, the biggest challenge is China. And therefore, that is a big convergence point between India and United States, keeping the China factor in mind. And that is why I think President Trump yesterday even called up President Putin. He spoke to him about 90 minutes. So this is again I would say, to some extent, of course, the focus is on seizing the Russia-Ukraine war. But nevertheless, it is also trying to dissuade or persuade Russia to be getting a little away from China. So China factor is very important, and therefore the defense factor comes very, very important to us. Now, both countries face certain challenges besides China. The second challenge is, of course, the terrorism and intelligence sharing. So as regards the defense is concerned, I think there would be a comprehensive defense cooperation treaty which is expected, which will be from 2025 to 2035, 10 years, a follow-up plan will be drawn. Now, what is expected in that? First is, of course, intelligence sharing. The meeting yesterday with the chief of Director National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was very, very important. Counter-terrorism and cyber security. These three aspects is very clear. Coming on to the defense imports, I think firstly the P-8I, the Poseidon, this long-term maritime aircraft, which is of course got a long range for the reconnaissance, and of course it's an anti-submarine also targeting the anti-ships and anti-submarines. So this we will contract, I think 6 more. We already have 12 more, and the Harpoon anti-ship missiles likely to get again in large numbers because these have got a range of 120. Now, since I have mentioned about China, the Quad factor is extremely important, and therefore our focus, of course, besides Bay of Bengal, would also be in the Indo-Pacific area. So where we need to have a strong surveillance aspect, and therefore that will enhance the reaction time of the Indian Navy. So Seahawks helicopters we may get in large numbers. And of course, coming on to the army point of view, we are already taking 777 howitzers. But I feel now another important thing could be the infantry combat vehicles, that is a striker version. These were used very effectively by United States in Afghanistan. And I think this is what we require, about 700 to 800 of them in large numbers, especially to be deployed in all kinds of terrain, including Leh Ladakh, East Sikkim, North Sikkim, because they are very efficient in higher altitude terrain. So keeping all these aspects in mind, I think I see some, now coming on to the Air Force Chief statement, since we have problem of the fighter aircraft and the LCA project is going little slow, I think we need to look for a 5th generation aircraft. Maybe this could be discussed on the anvil, maybe of course F-35 they will not give because it is the latest technology. F-22 they don't give, but I think we may have to negotiate. I think it may be on the cards for F-16/F-18. So this probably could be on the cards, and this is of course the larger number of imports we do. This will overcome the trade deficit issue which the United States is talking. We have the United States trade deficit about $45 billion. So this is what probably may be on the card. So overall, I feel right from, the next is of course AI and critical emerging technology. Now this is what again India is quite advanced technology in space. So all these things, I think it will be a comprehensive defense cooperation package, and even think tank institutes, etc. So a lot of discussions will take place, but I'm quite optimistic for our defense cooperation partnership. Kabir.
Again, very pertinent points over there, General. You know, Ambassador, I was going to come to you to understand what, because there is this balancing act that needs to be done in the defense sector, but another one in the trade and the tariff tango under Donald Trump. I wanted to understand how will Prime Minister be able to preempt any punitive measures coming from US, also expand your own trade basket, and all of this whilst we're aiming to avoid these high tariffs coming from Donald Trump. But before that, because we need some sort of context to what General here was talking about, Sandeep, help the viewers understand. I don't want this to be left out. What exactly is India's requirement right now? We're coming right on the heels of that French visit as well. 26 Rafales. That will help our fighter jet problem a little bit. But this is a catch-22 situation. The General spoke about the Stryker armored vehicles as well. Help the viewers understand what is it that we actually need and what is it that we'll actually have to do. There's a balance that needs to be struck over here.
Well, absolutely, Kabir. There is a balance that has to be struck between Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is to make your own weapons, to design, develop and manufacture them indigenously, and indeed to sell them like all the other P5 countries are doing. India hopes to do that in the next 10 or 15 years, but we're still on the way of becoming self-sufficient in defense requirements. But while we do that, there are certain number of defense items that have to be imported. It's literally the tip of the spear, which is why they're being imported in smaller numbers. As General Meston mentioned, I just want to repeat some of those again, and to just give you some context. The Stryker combat vehicles, both India and the US have been looking at. There are 530 Stryker combat vehicles. Each one costs about 5 million. These are armored personal carriers. The idea is for India to buy about 530 of them and to build the rest of them here in India. That deal could be worth potentially about 300 billion. You're looking at 99 GE 414 engines, fighter aircraft engines for the LCA Mark II. These are worth about $1.5 billion. There are 8 PA type Poseidon long-range maritime patrol strike aircraft. These are part of a total of something like 24 aircraft that the Indian Navy wanted to buy. They bought 12 so far. There could be another 6 in the pipeline. These aircraft could be worth 2.4 billion. So you're already looking at something like $4 to $5 billion worth of India-U.S. defense deals that are in the pipeline that have been either shelved or kept for later. But now it looks like these could be put together to give Trump that big deal that he wants, that big win that he wants, to say that I have got a defense deal out of India. They've in return for not getting tariffs on them. They have agreed to buy so-and-so defense deals from us. So that could be one. And of course, as General Meston mentioned, further down the line, there are those fighter aircraft deals. And the biggest defense deal possibly in any country in the world today is the Indian Air Force's requirement for the 114 multi-role fighter aircraft. This is a contract that has seen various avatars in the past. It used to be called the MMRCA bid, until it was scrapped a decade ago. It was revived a few years back in 2018 when the Indian Air Force said, hey, we can't get all the requirements, all our fighter aircraft from domestic industry. Therefore, we need to buy 114 fighter aircraft from abroad. And therefore, you had 8 contenders from various countries. And interestingly, there are 3 US contenders in the fray for this 114 MRFA deal. There is the F-15X Eagle, Lockheed Martin F-21, which is a variant of the F-16, and of course the Boeing FA-18 Super Hornet. 3 of these contenders out of the 8 are American aircraft. And this deal is potentially worth $25 billion. It's one of the largest such defense deals anywhere in the world. The Indian Air Force has not taken a final say on it because this is, of course, this has to be a political call. This cannot be a single service call. The Air Force would like to have the MRFA ASAP. It requires these aircraft given the falling squadron numbers. You heard the Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal AP Singh say that at the Aero India show in Bengaluru just 2 days ago, where he said he was very unhappy with the state of HAL not being able to fighter aircraft quickly enough. So a lot of people believe this was setting up the stage for this gigantic fighter aircraft deal. So the United States would possibly want India to seriously consider the options, these 3 fighter aircraft for that deal. But then there is yet another section within India's strategic community that believes that maybe this is not the right type of aircraft to look for. Maybe we need to look at something that is a little more advanced, maybe a 5th generation fighter aircraft, given the kind of threats that we face with China and Pakistan. China has, of course, got its 5th generation aircraft. It plans to sell some of them to Pakistan as well. So it's a complicated arms tangle out there, Kabir. A lot of deals in the pipeline. Of course, it's for India to negotiate these very carefully and to see the kind of benefits that it gets out of all of these. But looking ahead, I think the larger framework deal that everyone's been repeatedly mentioning without actually putting a name to it, I can hazard a guess and say that this is possibly going to be the RDP agreement. Now, the RDP agreement is something that India and the United States have been working on for a number of years now. It is called the Reciprocal Defense Procurement Agreement. While India and the US have signed several other foundational agreements, the RDP is the last one that really needs to be inked, which basically the United States has signed with 20 odd other countries. What it does is it levels the playing field with all of these other countries. It allows the United States companies to buy from all of these 28 or so countries, buy spare parts, buy components, treat them as they would American companies. So while the US has a policy of America first, buy American first, the RDP allows them to bypass this by treating all of these countries as US suppliers. So therefore, Indian companies then get a level playing field in the United States. They can supply their defense components there. The only catch in this, Kabir, is that there is a Make America Great Again underlying sentiment in the RDP, which means that the United States will also have to be treated similarly like the Indian defense companies are. So therefore, you will need to have Indian defense companies sourcing components and parts from the United States. And this is again something that India will have to really work out with the United States to see how, Make America Great Again works hand in glove with Atmanirbhar Bharat. Our plan of making.
So on the one side, on the one hand, you've got Make America Great Again, and on the other hand, you've got Atmanirbharta. And this isn't essentially Make America Great Again versus Atmanirbharta. This is, I think, each other facilitating and helping out each other on that front. But like you pointed out, this is a real complex mix-up. And those balancing acts that we're constantly talking about, this is going to be another very, very important balancing act that will have to be arrived at. Ambassador, I'm going to come to you next. RDP, Sandeep spoke about reciprocal defense procurement. The word reciprocal, that's been doing the rounds, be it tariffs, be it defense procurement. When we're looking at tariffs, that question that I was talking to you about how to strike that balance as well. We're looking at, preempting these punitive measures. You're going to have to look at avoiding these high tariffs, but at the same time, you want to bring down that trade surplus. You also want to expand your trade basket. Whoa, how is that going to happen?
Yes, it's not going to be very easy. It's a big challenge, but yes, it's doable, I think. Also because many of the items on which we are able to already be, are able to have some flexibilities already being spoken about, and I think will be further discussed during the meeting and will be conveyed. And also, I just want to mention one point. You had mentioned he came to France, and PM visited France first, and there we've had some, good deals, aircraft, etc. So I think this will also give us a position of strength to negotiate other, defense procurement, etc. with the U.S. So coming back to tariffs, I think tariffs will, we have also said we're ready to buy more oil from there, and so I think the Trump administration will understand that if they are too high, it will also hurt the American people, the American industry. And whatever is now currently going into America from India at a certain cost, its cost will increase. So I feel that to safeguard their interests, the American public's interests, and India has already indicated some concessions already. So I think it will be discussed, negotiated, and an amicable, outcome will be achieved. Yes, there might be some, tariffs he might still have to impose depending on the domestic constituency and the domestic pressures that he has to, or the domestic demands that he has to meet. But I feel that he will desist from doing that, and this is more of I think, like with the US, with Canada and Mexico, they've been put on hold while they're negotiating. He had imposed the tariffs, and then now they've been put on hold for a month, and they will be talking, and to find a resolution. So I think he might probably try something similar with India on some of the items. And of course, there's talk of oil. There's buying oil from there. There's talk of buying, of course, more defense equipment and machinery and a lot of other things which would be. Which they would like India to buy. So they will be, and to reduce dependence on others. So I think these negotiations are going to be complex, but I think there would already have been, if there's going to be an agreement signed and if there's going to be tariff announcements from our side, tariff reduction announcements from our side, already I think the groundwork would have been done. And when they meet, any sticking points will be finally resolved, will be addressed. And I feel that I'm confident that we'll have a good outcome during this visit, which will be a win-win for both sides. Because if he insists on putting very high tariffs, it's going to impact their economy as well. So the American economy. So I don't think he's going to just impose it without having a proper negotiation where both sides are able to. Even we can have a trade pact. We can look at a trade agreement. On the lines of the free trade agreements or special partnership, economic partnerships that we have, we could consider those as well. And I think those will be on the table as well.
All right, so FTA could be that blueprint that the ambassador is talking about. But I think, again, Ambassador, the key takeaway is that win-win situation for both these nations. Just for the viewers, I've also made it a point to refresh the memory of all the viewers, which is why the Mike Waltz bite from 2023. Both these leaders at the Howdy Modi event and the Namaste Trump event, I'm going to play those out as well. But recently at a podcast, you had Donald Trump, because he's, so het with the slangs. He's also, pushed back that move from TikTok as well. He said, Prime Minister Modi, well, Modi, he's a killer guy. Listen in to that reaction and we'll come back for more.
Modi, India. Yeah. He's a friend of mine. He's great. He's the nicest. India. Well, they had, before him, they were replacing him every year. It was very unstable. He came along. He's great. He's a friend of mine. But on the outside, he looks like he's your father. He's the nicest, total killer. Because I asked him. Yeah.
But Professor Salma Baba, the killer guy, and before 2014, according to Donald Trump, we were replacing our prime ministers every year. I mean, at least we get the point as to what President Trump was actually talking about. But the killer guy, back at home, the union budget, we've slashed those levies when you're talking about motorbikes, when you're talking about electronic vehicles. So brands like Harley Davidson and Tesla, they might be happy, but is it going to help the bonhomie of the president with the killer guy? Is it really going to help us when it comes to trade and tariffs? Professor Salma Baba, that question was for you.
Okay, thank you, Kabir. So I think, there are two things. One, I think the budget already saw, the concessions put out. Second, I think the fact that you are having a meeting, and prior to that meeting in the evening, President Trump is going to announce that big announcement on the tariffs. Everybody's waiting, with bated breath what is coming. Post those announcements, let's not forget, as even Ambassador Said pointed out, the fact that the documents are going to be signed by both sides. Negotiations have already been going on for a couple of weeks now. Hectic negotiations to, show what this strategic partnership can deliver. So there has to be a strong takeaway after those bilateral meetings. And that means both sides are going to be looking at, the word is reciprocity. So one side is balancing what is called their self-interest. On the other side, you can't have interest to dominate to such an extent that it creates an imbalance in the fine partnership, given that you're balancing other things. So it is going to be a fine balancing act. But what you're also going to see is both sides going with give and take. India has gone with a long shopping list, but it also means that, as Sandeep also pointed out, as we augment our defense, as we are, strengthening what we can do, modernizing it, doing the Atmanirbhar India, we cannot forget that the security circumstances around India are getting acuter. So that's where is the opportunity. The fact that we have the initiative on critical and emerging technologies also opens the doorway. So you've seen a steady growth. The fact that even prior to this administration coming in, till the very end of the last administration, you've had also 2+2 talks, all of them setting a stage for what I would call the point of delivery under the present administration, with definitely new defining terms and conditions. I think that is important to emphasize. But this is an administration which is coming in with a lot of, I think, a pro-India feeling. So I think we should look to the evening where we will see definitely, a takeaway in which there's a strengthening of the partnership. Definitely there will be attempts, and we'll see in the outcome the reduction on tariffs, India purchasing more. So that means that whole issue of the deficit for America in the trade balance being addressed, and indicating how, some of the critical issues of global governance also gets addressed. So it's not just a shopping list of goods and items. I think it's also about the political intentionality on both sides that is going to be on display this evening. This is about flagging what two administrations, as they come in with the time ahead of them over the next 4 years, this is going to be about that partnership. So let's not just put it into the narrow of the bilateral. Right. This is also about how they will set agenda together. We saw some of that play out on the European part of Prime Minister's tour. We're now looking at the other side of the transatlantic. So this is also about India's moment. Remember, we are looking at how the Prime Minister is navigating
India's moment.
two sides. Right.
India's moment. That's the key takeaway here, Professor. You know what, Aditya, I do want to ask you and understand, because we're picking up that there's some sort of development and movement right outside the Blair House. Elon Musk might be on his way to the Blair House for that key talk with Prime Minister Modi. Starlink, could it be making its entry into India, launch its services, the low orbital satellite and the low latency speeds? We'll talk about Starlink, but the control room is, pushing me for a quick commercial breather here. Aditya, right on the other side, with Elon Musk's key talks with Prime Minister Modi, what is going to be on the agenda and on the cards? Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Rolling coverage, crucial meet of the Prime Minister and US President right on the other side.
मैं और आप, हम अलग कहाँ हैं?
Gill on 199.
अपनी अपनी मंजिल पर हम दोनों की नजर है, और उसके लिए हम जी जान लगाकर मेहनत करते हैं। पर कभी कभी
He's out on 199.
मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
Mama must be missing us, na?
Let's take you on, babe, give me one day. Feel the itch under my skin, it's a one day. You been like it when you see we in the hey. It doesn't matter, just gotta get going.
New GT line, Taigun and Virtus. Volkswagen.
ನಮ್ಮ ಅರ್ನಿಂಗ್ಸ್ಗೂ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ಗೂ ಹೋಲಿಕೆ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸರಿಯಾದ ಸೇವಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಅದು ಕಪಿಲ್ ಚಿಟ್ ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇಂದಾನೇ ಸಾಧ್ಯ.
ನನ್ನ ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಕಪಿಲ್ ಚಿಟ್ಸ್.
ಕಪಿಲ್ ಚಿಟ್ಸ್, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕನಸಿನ ಸಾಕಾರ.
Valuations can be frothy. Going public is almost like what some of us would like to say is the holy grail, right? IPOs are a trend, not a bubble.
Do secondary markets exist? Answer is absolutely yes, and it's been around for a very long time.
Valuations could be high or low, and valuations may correct over time, but IPOs are here to stay. It is basically a graduation ceremony of sorts. It is potentially where a startup stops being a startup and starts becoming an enterprise.
The IPO space has just started in the past 24 months. The startup ecosystem has been around for 15 years.
Fundamentally, if you have a strong business and you have predictability of cash flows, and you can actually give with a fair degree of confidence where the business is headed, the market will reward you.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're at the right spot when you're talking about the crucial bilateral between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump. There's so much that's happened. He arrived in Washington late last night, yesterday, in the freezing temperatures. It was drizzling as well. And on Pennsylvania Avenue, the Indian diaspora out there trying to catch some glimpse of the Prime Minister. The entire sky getting filled up with chants of Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata Ki Jai, and of course Modi hai to mumkin hai. After that, of course, US National Director of Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, they met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We're already learning of NSA Mike Waltz and their interaction with Prime Minister Modi. And Elon Musk, he's already on his way to the Blair House. Let's decode what all is going to be on there on the agenda: a new defense framework, critical technologies. We're talking about trade. There's going to be some changes in those tariffs as well. A lot of surprises in the store for the viewers. With me on the broadcast, Sandeep Unnithan, editor News9 Plus, Aditya Raj Kaul, executive editor Strategic Affairs and National Security News9, also with us on the broadcast, and of course Professor Umu Salma Baba is also with us on the broadcast. Elon Musk, live visuals on your screens, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not just Elon Musk, it's the entire family that's accompanying this chief advisor to the United States' president and the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, Tesla and Twitter owner, SpaceX founder. That's the man we're talking about, Elon Musk, making his way to the Blair House. Aditya, let's quickly break this down. What could possibly be on the agenda as well? We know for a fact that Tesla has been asking to level the playing ground. It wants to make its own entry into India. India could be that right market for a big company like Tesla as well. But now that he's head of the Department of Government Efficiency, a key advisor to US President Donald Trump, what could be on the agenda? From X sitting on Elon Musk, his daddy's shoulders, right there in the White House, giving that press treatment, to now meeting the Prime Minister in the Blair House. What's on the agenda?
When it comes to Starlink, Kabir, if not now, then when? That would be on the mind of Elon Musk, really. And I believe there were some problems, especially concerning the security that have been discussed. Elon Musk for a very long time has been wanting Starlink to touch the Indian market. But the biggest of all worries was, of course, the data. Where exactly will the data be stored? We believe that there would be now assurances given by Elon Musk to Prime Minister Narendra Modi directly that the data would be stored locally, and other security assurances as well. So we do believe there would be some headway, and perhaps there would be an invitation from Prime Minister Narendra Modi that will go out to Elon Musk to actually visit India in near future. That would be on cards as well. Remember, already Starlink has made its way to Bhutan, but in the recent few months, two of the Starlink devices have been also found in conflict areas and with drug related members inside the Indian territory, and that has caused worry for the Indian agencies. As of now, Starlink is not active, but there would be hectic negotiations now underway. When exactly would Starlink and Tesla, of course, hit the Indian market? Of course, apart from that, there is a lot of color and a lot of bonhomie that's witnessed. One of the top leaders of the Trump administration, the very first to meet Prime Minister Modi, was J.D. Vance in Paris on the sidelines of the Artificial Intelligence Summit that was co-chaired by the Prime Minister. And their Prime Minister had given numerous gifts, not just to J.D. Vance and his wife Usha, the second lady, but also their kids. A very thoughtful gesture on part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And similarly now, Elon Musk, along with his family, these live visuals coming on the screen, entering the Blair House. Elon Musk usually, again, is a businessman and usually undertakes most of his meetings alone. But we saw those beautiful visuals of the Oval Office, where he was with his kid, there inside the Oval Office with President Trump as well. And now, again, the entire family walking inside the Blair House. Any moment now, that meeting between Elon Musk and Prime Minister Modi would be beginning. But lastly, Kabir, on the larger point of Trump, Modi, bonhomie, and also what to expect. At the end of the day, we need to realize that Trump is a businessman. He's a peacemaker. He's somebody who loves to strike a deal. And that's why over the last 24 hours, we've been seeing hectic negotiations also taking place around Russia, Ukraine. He spoke to Putin, he spoke to Zelensky, and now he has named at least 5 to 6 people who will be heading these negotiations to end the war over the next few weeks or months. And while Europe does not like it and perhaps believes that this would be in favor of Russia, but there will be some headway finally in this long war. And one of the panelists rightly pointed out that security is top of the agenda. And in the recent months, it has been a headache for India as well. The developments in Bangladesh over the last 6 months, the radicals up in arms against the minority or liberal voices in Bangladesh. Apart from that, Pakistan-India border heating up. There was a recent IED attack in which 2 of our soldiers, 1 captain, were killed in action. Apart from that, Afghanistan, there have been bombings that have been reported in Kunduz, in Kabul, and other areas where senior members of the Taliban have been attacked. The ISI and the Pakistan clearly not liking the developments in Afghanistan and going against the Taliban. Apart from that, Hamas actually holding the stage with Jaish-e-Mohammed in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So a lot of developments taking place, and certainly India would want the US to stand shoulder to shoulder with them when it comes to intelligence gathering, strategic alliance, security matters, and that's why the latest of the all developments, a list of 12 Khalistanis and gangsters who are dreaded criminals currently on US soil has been also shared with the US NSA, and perhaps likely there could be some headway and action for the deportation in the coming weeks.
Important points again that you've raised over there, Aditya. Sandeep, if I could, pick up from where Aditya has left us, let's talk a little bit more about the Starlink. When you're looking at the pros and cons of this technology, this gadget, people can use it in rudimentary places as well. There's less latency, more effective speeds, but with effective speed and internet comes the boon and the bane both. So on the Libra scales, what side, tilts heavier, the pros or the cons? And in the Indian context, how is Prime Minister Modi and the entire Indian delegation now going to be looking at this? We're already getting visuals of Elon Musk and the entire family making their way to Blair House.
Yes, absolutely, Kabir. And I can see Elon Musk with more children than he brought into the White House. He got his son, little X, into the White House, into the Oval Office, and now I see 4 of his kids there. So that's going to be a handful for Prime Minister Modi to.
The Prime Minister in France, he also celebrated J.D. Vance's son Vivek's birthday as well. I think he's packed quite a lot of toys this time around because he gifted J.D. Vance's son Vivek also a couple of toys.
Well, I can tell you one thing, Kabir. I mean, Prime Minister Modi is never caught off guard, and he would have completely anticipated this. And if Erdogan, if you remember that famous meeting between Erdogan and Elon Musk and his son, Erdogan had got a football for his, his son. So I'm sure Prime Minister Modi is, working up his best Santa Claus act, and he's got something for Elon Musk and his kids to remember. Of course, the Prime Minister would like to remind Elon Musk about that visit that he was supposed to undertake to India in April of 2024, just 10 months ago, which he took a rain check on at the last minute, and he headed to Beijing instead. So it was like Elon Musk's China plus one moment, and that, of course, I'm sure bygones are bygones now that Elon Musk position of very, very great importance in the White House, given the fact that he is one of President Trump's closest advisors. But the fact is that, at this moment, Kabir, it's very difficult to say what Starlink is going to do right now. Because, at the end of the day, this is a foreign platform, it's a foreign technology, it's a foreign company. Would you rather have something like this with a foreign service provider, or would you want an Indian company to put this kind of technology out? And there are several Indian companies out there who would want to get some kind of a level playing field when it comes to a technology like this. So if you're looking at India, which has been left behind in a lot of these technology innovations, whether it is AI, forget AI, we don't even have social media platforms of our own. All of our news is played out on foreign social media platforms. Some of our biggest media barons today are sitting on the west coast of California. So if we haven't got our own social media platforms, we haven't got our own digital ecosystems yet, bringing a platform like Starlink, it's literally like unleashing AI onto a country which has barely managed to get 4G, 3G, and 4G phones. So this is something that the government of India would be very, very cognizant of when it allows entry to or Starlink into India, because it is a very, very, very powerful and a very disruptive technology. Aditya just mentioned the disruptive nature of the fact that it could be used by inimical interests. We have enemies all around, Kabir. We have unsettled borders to the west, to the north, and to the east as well. And to have this kind of a capability in the hands of these, third-party countries, anti-national elements, all of that, allow them to, communicate seamlessly, and that is the capability that Starlink really brings to the, table. And that is something that I'm sure the government of India will be fully aware of before they give this licensing agreement to Elon Musk. And he would very much like India to, come on board. It's 1.4 billion Indians. It's the largest market out there, because Elon Musk knows that China is not going to open up Starlink to, is not going to open up its territory to Starlink, as it doesn't allow any other social media platform or, Western media platforms into China. It is the great digital firewall that they have over there. But in India, it's a different case, Kabir, and the fact that the kind of disruptive potential that Starlink has it's far more disruptive than, for instance, something like Tesla. Tesla is harmless when you look at the power and the potential of a communication system like Starlink. And I am old enough, Kabir, to remember the time when the government of India licensed radio and television sets. My family still has copies of those TV and radio licenses, because the governments understand the disruptive potential of these kind of technologies. So if you're looking at, a country of our size, our complexity, our nature, and then you have this kind of technology that's being beamed up from low Earth orbit, it's literally like a divine kind of communication tool.
Absolutely
so I think they will be very careful in allowing this kind of technology, especially in the hands of the richest man on the planet, Kabir.
No, you're absolutely right, because with something as small as a pager that was turned into an explosive device. It was ironical that Netanyahu gave Donald Trump a golden pager when he visited the United States. But let's bring in Major General Ashwini Sevach, defense and security expert. He's been patiently waiting on the broadcast with us. General, before we move on from Starlink, how about you also help us understand some of the military uses, the drawbacks, the shortcomings, or will this really put India at a vantage point, or the user in general at a vantage point, about how important is it to store all the data locally, the security concerns of it all? Over to you, General.
Very good. See, Kabir, we have been always seeing it that whenever you get such a communication system, this can be also utilized by the people who are amical to your progress, also by the extremists, also by the terrorists. The Starlink 2 of these phones were also found in Manipur. Now the point which comes in, one is that the data where it will be stored, whether it is in India or elsewhere. The second thing is that you are already now making 5G, you are upgrading yourself, you now hire a Starlink, which you do not know which are its negatives. Can it be misused by the terrorist organization and extremists in Northeast? That is a big challenge. So we have to also see that. But certainly I suppose as far as this concern is there, this possibly Elon Musk will be able to justify as to what are the precautions and how he will make sure that these pitfalls can be taken care of. But what I am now interested is that today the relationship which is there between Modi and Trump, and also what is there on the plate as far as the defense is concerned. That is a very important thing. Not too many people are talking about it, but these are the 2-3 things which will make a tremendous impact. Our G404 engine is been delayed tremendously, and due to which our Tejas Mark 1, which should have come by now almost about 20 to 25, they have not able to come, because this is given by Geo Airspace. In Biden government, there have been a delay. Now I am sure Prime Minister Modi is trying to push with the Donald Trump that these engine must come at the earliest. And the second thing, that MQ-9 drones, we have almost paid 20-25% of that amount, but they are still not seeing the light of the day. They have not come. We need 31 of them, almost about 15 for Indian Navy and 8 each for Air Force and Army. So these are the things. Then MH-60R, that is Seahawk, which is anti-submarine. That also is in the pipeline, but it has not come. In December also some sort of negotiation had taken place on that. So weapon system is very important. As far as the US is concerned, they are very keen that we must buy weapons from US, because there is a trade deficit which is there about $40 billion. And they also want India to buy the energy as far as gas and oil is concerned. But as far as the weapons are concerned, we are interested that whatever weapon we buy, there should be a TOT, transfer of technology, and a joint production in the long run. Now, the F-35 is one more aircraft which is a 5th generation. It's the first time in the world where that air show, both the competitors, Russia and USA, has shown their frontline aircraft, that is Su-57 and F-35. India is showing keen interest in buying F-35. It is stealth aircraft. We do not have that. The Chinese have J-20, and the Pakistani can also get it from China very easily. And also J-35, which is 5th generation, which China is trying to make it. So overall, I suppose a defense deal will be very, very important. And also our concern on Chabar. If they will put some pressure and restriction on Chabar, this will take us back. We have already conveyed last time when you find that Katsa was put, that countering America's adversary through Sanction Act. When the sanction was put on Iran, India reduced importing oil from that. But we have made sure that America do not put Katsa on Chabar. We have told them that if you want to directly go to Afghanistan, bypassing Pakistan, and then going to Central Asian state and North-South transport corridor, you must not put any Katsa or any economic sanction.
You're absolutely right. And General, when you're talking about ports and you're talking about corridor, the India-Middle East Economic Corridor, something that was highlighted in Prime Minister Modi's France visit as well, that's going to be highlighted over here as well. We're going to have to slip into a quick commercial breather here. Before that, let me do due honors. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat, is with us on the broadcast. And like I promised, we are going to constantly be taking that trip down memory lane. This time around, let's quickly take a look at what happened at the Namaste Trump event. Let's listen into both the leaders. Let's rewind a couple of years back and understand where that bonhomie stood back in the day and where have we arrived at.
Namaste. Namaste. He started out by his father's side as a chihuahua, a tea seller. When he was a young man, he worked at a cafeteria in this city. Stand up. Everybody loves him, but I will tell you this, he's very tough. Prime Minister Modi, you are not just the pride of Gujarat. You are living proof that with hard work and devotion, Indians can accomplish anything at all, anything they want.
और आज मेरे दोस्त प्रेसिडेंट डोनाल्ड ट्रंप अपनी ऐतिहासिक भारत यात्रा का आरंभ अहमदाबाद में नमस्ते ट्रंप से कर रहे हैं। आप कल्पना कर सकते हैं, वो अमेरिका से सीधे यहां पहुंचे हैं। इतनी लंबी जर्नी के बाद भारत में उतरते ही प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप और उनका परिवार सीधे साबरमती आश्रम गया और फिर इस कार्यक्रम में आया है।
और आप, कोई फर्क नहीं है हमें।
6 needed of the last ball.
जब ताक लेते हैं अपनी मंजिल को तो उसे पाने के लिए कमर तोड़ मेहनत करते हैं, पर कभी कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच
House is not in your budget, sir. Sorry.
रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
इस खेल में अब खेला होगा, हर नहले पे बहला होगा। ये बड़ा है, स्टेज बड़ा है, पूरा भारत साथ खड़ा है। साथ खड़ा है, गेम बड़ा है। Dribble like a rap, pass, 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 setting up the trap. Kick it hard in the booth. Chuck, there for the ball. Shaka day for the boy. 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 Shaka day for the boy.
Modi-Trump meet and its live coverage right here on News9. Joining me here on the broadcast is Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat. You've got Major General Ashwini Sewaj, defense and security expert. My colleagues Sandeep Unnithan and Aditya Rajkal also with us on the broadcast here. Ambassador, I'm going to quickly come to you. Let's bring you in on this discussion. You know, we've been talking about how this balancing act is going to be, very crucial when you're looking at defense, when you're looking at trade ties, and there's not a lot of elbow room, not a lot of wiggling space. Now, what does India trade with America? We're talking about, medical equipment, we're talking about technical gadgets, we're talking about, pearls and gems. And on the other hand, you've got petrochemicals, you've got fuel, you've got energy, you've got small nuclear reactors that the Americans also, send here towards India. When we're looking at what India can possibly now do, what can Prime Minister Modi now do to satisfy the American administration under Donald Trump? Because I'm also reading here that India spent between $1.5 billion to $4 billion on American defense imports in the last recent years. And at this point in time, there was going to be some sort of trouble taking on expensive new systems like, fighter jets. We've already got pending orders that earlier, in the debate and discussion, Sandeep and I were talking about how there's already pending orders when we're looking at the United States, when we're looking at Russia, when we're looking at France as well. So what is it that India can actually do to satisfy Mr. Trump?
Well, thanks for having me on your show. Before we went on the break, I heard General Sewaj, and he hit the nail on the head when he said that petrochemical exports from the United States as also weapons exports, these will be fundamental towards trying to assuage America. General Sewaj was right. Our security needs are very, very important. We are the world's largest importer of defense equipment, and the United States is the world's largest exporter of defense equipment. So there is a natural possibility of building a good equation there. Let me also mention that the U.S. defense manufacturing infrastructure is part of the deep state of the United States. It controls policy to a considerable extent, and the deep state wants a good relationship with India so that it can boost its defense production sales to India. Now, there is therefore this very, very important aspect. But the problem is that while the United States wants to maximize its share of the Indian defense market, but the Trump administration is not very forthcoming when it comes to transferring technology. The Biden administration was relatively more forthcoming, but President Trump has been very, very opposed to the idea of transfer of technology in the defense sector. And we, on the other hand, want to indigenize production. We want to purchase sophisticated weaponry, but our objective is make in India. So there is a fundamental problem there, but good negotiations could resolve that. There is, of course, the petrochemical aspect. President Trump has been emphasizing that he wants the United States to become the world's largest exporter of petrochemical products. And certainly India is a very big market. There has been a lot of opposition from the Trump administration to India's large purchases of petroleum products from Russia. So while we could cut down our imports from Russia and give a share of our petrochemical market to the United States, but the prices have to be reasonable. You know, we were getting the oil from Russia because the prices were so low. And the United States, if it wants to export oil to India at very high prices, because a lot of the oil there comes from the fracking process, then unfortunately there will be a problem that we will encounter. But nonetheless, there is a very perceptible interest on the part of the United States to boost its exports in these two sectors. There are a lot of problems which may come up during the bilateral interactions. Tariffs, because President Trump wants to impose tariffs on countries which he feels are not very helpful to the United States in terms of reducing the adverse balance of trade which the United States has. And with India, there is a considerable trade imbalance, as he sees it.
You're right about that.
There is also this question of immigrants, both legal and illegal. As regards illegal immigrants, we cannot oppose the deportation because the illegal immigrants have no business to be in the United States. But what we are concerned about is the manner in which they were deported, the inhumane manner. They were shackled, they were tied with handcuffs, and that created an uproar here. So certainly we will bring it to the attention of the US authorities that by all means deport them. But do it in a more humane manner. Don't make it such that there will be another public outcry. As regards legal immigrants, I think President Trump has himself said that he's in favor of the H-1B visa system, and some of his very senior advisors like Elon Musk, like Vivek Ramaswamy and some others have spoken in favor of it because the American tech industry needs people who are qualified and who can help in the strengthening of that particular sector. So these are some of the important issues. Then, of course, as General Srivastava mentioned, China and Iran will be very important issues. In regard to Iran, we view the Chabahar investment as something that will give us the much needed trade route through Afghanistan to Central Asia and beyond to Russia and Europe, whereas America wants to come down very heavily on Iran unless it renounces its pursuit of nuclear weapons, and Iran has not has said that it doesn't want to do so. Iran has not given any favorable indication that it will accede to President Trump's demands. Then, of course, there is the larger geopolitical question of China. Both the United States and India view Chinese expansionism as a threat, and there is a lot of common ground, and that is why significantly the very day after President Trump's inauguration, the first meeting of the Quad Foreign Ministers was held there on the very first day after his inauguration. That underlined the importance which he attaches to Quad, and I think that will see the coming closer.
Right, Ambassador. We've got some fresh developments coming in as well. Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, he's put out a statement. He says, I've spoken with the Polish Prime Minister and we've discussed the conditions needed for a lasting and real peace in Ukraine, and we've agreed that no negotiations with Vladimir Putin can begin without a united position from Ukraine, Europe, and the United States. I informed the Prime Minister about my conversation with President Trump, and we discussed key messages and the need to coordinate the positions of all Europeans. Well, essentially, Volodymyr Zelensky has also taken up a stand himself. Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar also with us on the broadcast. General, how about you come in on this? Yesterday, we were talking about how Prime Minister Modi, he's made it quite clear that this is not an era of war. President Donald Trump, he said it time and again that I'm not here to start wars, I'm here to close them down, I'm here to end those wars. And just yesterday, he had a telephonic conversation with both the leaders, Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. But now Zelensky taking a quick, sudden, different stance on that particular prospect. Hegseth, what NATO chief Mark Rutte had to say. Let's put all of that into context. Where are we going when we're looking at the 24 February fresh deadline to stop the Ukraine-Russia war?
Look, at the outset, these are all initial, statements being made and initial positions being outlined. It's not necessary that this, what Mr. Zelensky has put out is his final stance. So he's making up his mind. After all, it was only yesterday that President Trump has spoken to President Putin and to Mr. Zelensky. And if you go to Truth Social, the President Trump has put the whole thing out in quite a great detail. And thereafter, the Defense Secretary, Mike Hegseth, he's also put out saying that, look, Ukraine can't expect to go back to the pre-2014, border era. And he's also said that, he's virtually ruled out Ukraine joining NATO. Now, at this point of time, what Zelensky has come out and said is basically making a stand so that he is not fully, on a receiving end of the deal between President Trump and, Putin. So this is just a thing. It'll play itself out. The talks are to start really tomorrow, as per what President Trump has said. So there's going to be a team. He's already put a team together, President Trump, consisting of Defense Secretary Marco Rubio, then of course, Mike Waltz and others, and of course Steve Witkoff. So all these three people are going to sit down and start talking with both parties, and certain things will come out. There are extreme positions. If you look at the Russian position, they will say they want the entire area, and they will say we will start talking only after we take out the Kursk salient, which Ukraine still holds about 11 kilometers in depth into Russia. Whereas Ukraine will like to use that as a negotiating position. So a whole lot of things are on the table. But the interesting thing is that the talks have started. That's the most interesting thing. Now, we were just discussing the issue of India, Russia, and USA, and the oil problems and all that. Just think of it. Whatever happens, once Ukraine and Russia start talking, and there's some negotiated settlement which starts taking place, it'll ease our pressure off. It'll ease the pressure between India-U.S., India-Russia relations, and the Russian pressure will start, waning off. So there is a way forward which we can see in our relationship.
Just to tell the viewers as well, my apologies, General, for butting in on your thoughts like that. But Vivek Ramaswamy, the politician, entrepreneur, of course, Indian origin, somebody who formerly was going to run for the White House as well. He's made his way to the Blair House. He's next in line after NSA Mike Waltz and Elon Musk, the tech billionaire. It's Vivek Ramaswamy's turn to sit down for a mano a tete-a-tete with the Prime Minister at the iconic Blair House. Back to you, General. Do complete your thoughts. And next up, Sandeep, we really need to understand what the United States is trying to do in terms of breaking away Russia from China as well. We need to look at that as well, because only when they're going to be able to push Russia away from that Chinese, value chain? Will they be able to really push China in that corner, which is again one of those strategies to counter China? Or maybe, I'm just thinking out loud. Let the general finish his thoughts, and I'm going to come to you next.
Yeah. No, I'll talk about that also, right? So there is a sliver of hope for India in this, where the deal goes, and the deal, like you said, has probably or the talk of a deal or a talk of a negotiated settlement has already set off probably a cat amongst the pigeons in China. If you look at the Chinese media, right, like South China Morning Post or Guancha, their vernacular and all that, you get the feeling that at least the Chinese are thinking that whatever Russia is doing is against them. In fact, they've gone to the extent, there's an analysis which says, will Ukraine turn into something like Israel or Japan for USA tomorrow? That's the threat, right? Just think of Ukraine turning into such an ally of Russia. I mean, USA.
Live visuals on your screens. My apologies again, General, just to apprise the viewers. That's tech billionaire Elon Musk and the entire delegation. The delegation, of course, consisting of Elon Musk's family, the children, his partner over there as well, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi sitting with the NSA Ajit Doval, you get the External Affairs Minister, and the entire EAM delegation as well. All right, we see a little bit of a gift exchange that also took place. Sandeep, we were earlier talking about how the gift exchange had to happen from this side to the other, but we just saw the tech billionaire give something to Prime Minister. Of course, the larger details are going to come out in just a short time. But then again, that snub that took place, he went to Beijing, did not come to India. That gift, I think, to sort of, put, what's the right word here? Allay those fears, dispel those, opinions about something's wrong between these two leaders.
Absolutely, Kabir. What's the saying? Never look a gift horse in the mouth. That's possibly a lot of those permutations and combinations be flashing through people in the room there, as Elon Musk has gifted Prime Minister Modi something small. It looks like a mini satellite or something that's related to some big deal that Elon Musk wants to achieve in India. And I mean, he is the richest man in the world. He's got huge commercial interests in both China and, of course, in India. He's made that clear amply in the past as well. Starlink, of course, is his baby. He wants to bring Starlink to India. Of course, there are issues with that. Tesla, of course, is another, he wants to bring Tesla in as well. And in fact, just a couple of months back, there was talk of Tesla looking for showrooms in India. This comes after, the Tesla sales have been actually falling all across the world. And, the other thing I was looking at, Kabir, today is that old video of Elon Musk from 2011. It's gone viral today on social media, where he's actually laughing at BYD, the fact that the Chinese cars have absolutely no chance against Tesla. And 10 years later, the shoe is on the other foot. It's BYD that's ruling the roast when it comes to electric vehicle sales, whether it's in China or across the world. And Musk he's worried. He's a worried businessman. He knows, and he said that in the past as well, the fact that if BYD is allowed to do business across the world, it will kill every single car maker in the world. It's that good. The battery technology is superior. The car has the kind of finish and features that many other car makers cannot, offer at this moment. And Trump is, Musk is in the crosshairs of BYD, and there's hard bargaining that he'll have to do now. And obviously, he looks at India as they say, the China plus one thing must be playing very big on his mind right now. And you can see, I'd like to, literally give a penny for his thoughts, or a few dollars even, what Elon Musk must be thinking right now. He's just thinking business, business, business. How can I get Prime Minister Modi to allow me to come in and do business, in India? So that's all about this. And of course, the fact is that Elon Musk is someone who not only straddles the tech sector in the United States, but also he's cast a very big shadow across the White House. It's a very unusual pairing of a president and a tech billionaire. We've never seen this kind of a pairing, possibly ever in the 21st century at least. I'm not sure over the 20th, but there would be several instances of US presidents who've counted on billionaire friends, who they could rely on for advice and, counsel. But in this 21st century, this is a very unusual partnership. And the fact that Elon Musk is someone who has President Trump's ear is something that India has taken into consideration literally from the day President Trump was elected US president in November. And of course, over the last couple of months, it's become amply clear that Elon Musk is the man to watch out for. He is literally in Trump's closest circle of advisors.
I mean, he barged in on that Oval Office press conference, like I've been talking about, little X on his shoulder. He just simply opens the door and barges in. That's the man that we're talking about here. That is Elon Musk.
I don't think we've seen those kind of visuals ever, at least not in the 21st century, of the sight of an American president sitting behind the Resolute desk, and you have a billionaire standing over there holding forth, and the billionaire's son over there, doing his thing with the Resolute desk, whispering to Trump. I'm not sure what he said to President Trump, but Trump is sitting there impassively looking on, occasionally admiringly at Elon Musk. Look, he's the guy I've got. But the prediction is, Kabir, is that how long will this bromance between Elon Musk and Donald Trump last? Because President Trump has been very mercurial when it comes to his advisors and his cabinet. The average tenure was 15, 16 months in the first Trump administration. Of course, now he's got a lot more people that he can trust. But
you pointed out yourself, Sandeep, that he's looking towards only business. He's a one-track minded guy right now. Business. Yep. And with Donald Trump also looking to do the most before the midterm polls, I think so will Elon Musk at this point in time. Ambassador, we're talking about the trade tariff truth bombs that he's been dropping on Truth Social as well. And unlike most Asian countries, we back at home, because trade deficit is something that everybody is talking about, we back at home have our own trade deficit to deal with as well. Now, let's put some numbers for the viewers out there. The United States has the world's biggest trade deficit at $1.2 trillion, but that amounts to less than 4% of its economy. And India, a country that depends for most of its fuel needs, runs a deficit worth between 8 to 12% on most years. That's the average. I mean, even at $1.2 trillion, that's less than 4% of the US economy. And that in itself has driven the value of the rupee to painfully low levels when compared to the dollar at this point in time. We're discussing, of course, it's all speculation. We're looking at the crucial, meet that is going to take place, the joint statement that is going to come out. But we're constantly also trying to analyze the elbow space, the wiggle space, the wriggle space that we actually have to satisfy somebody like Mr. Donald Trump. Like I pointed out, we have our own trade deficit. Theirs amounts to less than 4%. Ours stands at anywhere between 8 to 12% every year, and we still need our own petrochemicals. External Affairs Minister's, videos about how he shushes up the Western media about we're going to take oil from Russia and, of course, go against them. Who are we with? Who are we not? We're our own voice, our own say, our own balancing scale. Where does India stand at this point in time? The rupee falling down to painfully low levels, and we're looking at these major bilaterals that is going to deepen India-U.S. ties. Over to you, Ambassador.
At a very difficult moment in time. As you said, our trade deficit is mounting, the rupee is coming down. Now, when the trade deficit of the United States goes up, they print more treasury bills, they print more dollars, and they circulate them all over the world. So, in other words, as long as the dollar is the backbone of the world trading system, the United States has a very big advantage. We don't have that advantage, and the trade deficit affects us very adversely. Donald Trump is a businessman. He's very transactional. He has said again and again that he wants to make America great again, which means dictate policy to other countries as regards particularly trade and financial matters. And we have a problem there because he is threatening tariffs. So whether or not those tariffs are announced today, but they are hanging over our head like the sword of Damocles, and we don't want those high tariffs on our export. At the same time, he should be aware that there was a tariff war which he had commenced because he had increased the tariffs on aluminium and steel, and then we had increased tariffs on 25 items. And finally, with a great deal of difficulty in 2023 during Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States, this matter was resolved. I hope he doesn't want to again escalate this issue by increasing tariffs. But nonetheless, he believes in arm twisting. There is no doubt about it that his policy is based on building as much as pressure as he can. And I'm afraid he's building pressure on us because he wants to give us to give in on a number of issues. And as I said earlier, the most important one is defense supplies. The United States is the world's largest exporter of defense equipment, and he wants to maximize the share of the Indian market. We have a problem. We want to indigenize, and transfer of technology is not totally acceptable to Donald Trump. So we have some tough negotiating to do. But nonetheless, the important point, as you yourself mentioned, is that there are going to be some tough issues that we have to encounter.
All right, Aditya, I'm going to come to you next because we've spoken about NSA Mike Waltz's, dialogue with the Prime Minister. Of course, Elon Musk's meeting currently underway, and we're also learning that Vivek Ramaswamy, he's almost there at the Blair House as well. Just to help the viewers out there, what might be on the cards, the agenda? He's got the money, he's got the clout, he was running for the White House himself. Those dreams did not actualize per se. But how is this significant, Vivek Ramaswamy and Prime Minister Modi's meet?
You know, Vivek Ramaswamy has been again a very significant pro-India voice in and close around the Trump circle, and especially on the issue of Indian immigrants in the U.S., H-1B visas, and how to smoothen, the Indian talent in U.S., the entire visa regime. For that purpose, of course, this meeting would be significant because Vivek Ramaswamy, again, is a very close confidant of Trump. He left the presidential race in support of Trump not very long ago. And apart from that, he was also given the executive role along with Elon Musk at the DOGE, but he chose to contest for the governorship of Ohio, and that's what he's focused on. But three significant meetings taking place ahead of that big meeting between Trump and Modi. It began with Mike Waltz. Now, Prime Minister Modi has just tweeted 2 minutes ago about the meeting with Mike Waltz and how security and the gambit of the security ties between India and US was discussed, and with various sectors within the security domain. Apart from that, of course, Elon Musk, we will know shortly what exactly was discussed. There will be a statement out from the Indian side in a few minutes from now. And of course, Vivek Ramaswamy has also reached the Blair House now for that significant meeting. So very crucial meetings taking place. 4 important, I would say, confidants of Trump meeting Prime Minister Modi. It began with Tulsi Gabbard and then Mike Waltz, finally Elon Musk, and now Vivek Ramaswamy. Any minute will be beginning that meeting. Each meeting lasting from about 30 to 40 minutes. It's not a quick call on. That's what we're talking about. It's a detailed call on. That means that some significant issues are being discussed threadbare. Of course, many of them have family members also accompanying them to meet Prime Minister Modi. Also talking about how significant Prime Minister Modi's visit is, that he has been given, accommodation. He's being hosted at the Blair House, which is quite significant. This is, of course, the president's, you could say the guest house. Apart from that, of course, as many have been predicting that there would be some tough negotiations that have already taken place over the last couple of weeks when this meeting was being decided. And my prediction would be that there would be a win-win situation. Of course, a lot when we talk about Modi and Trump is also about narrative and messaging, and that's what would be the top priority. There would be some big announcements in favor of US and some others in favor of India. That could include, from illegal immigration to trade as well, and most significantly, more defense purchases, just like you mentioned, and Sandeep elaborated on the defense framework that we will witness. But one critical miss, I would say, would be the sharing of technology that hasn't really, unfortunately, transpired, and it's unlikely that there would be some headway on it.
All right. So not much of a headway when you're talking about the transfer of tech per se, but the defense framework, you rightly pointed out, Aditya, we've broken that down per se. It's going to be RDP. That's what Sandeep used, reciprocal defense procurement. That seems to be the deal that people are talking about right now. We'll have to, of course, wait and find out as to what happens in that joint press statement, moments from now. We're looking at a win-win situation between these two, nations when we're talking about trade, when we're talking about the defense framework, when we're talking about immigration. But General Shankar, I'm going to quickly come to you. We need to look at China as well, because India and the United States, the world's largest democracies, both together, they somehow find themselves on the similar plateau, the similar plane, when we're looking at how to tackle and go against our mutual rival, that's China, the dragon in the room. And India has traded more with the United States than it has traded with China, spent billions on US defense imports in the recent years. The Quad summit, people are also saying that maybe the Quad turns into a military alliance. You never know what happens in the next 4 years to, well, of course, counter China's economic primacy in the Indo-Pacific as well, and the Quad. How are you looking at those developments the next 4 years under Donald Trump and collectively tackling China, the dragon in the room?
Yeah, that's a good question. How to tackle the dragon in the room? There are three shades to this whole story. First is the Indo-Pacific construct. And, there's an Indo part of it and a Pacific part of it. Increasingly, the Indo part of it is coming into focus. You see the developments in the North Arabian, you see the developments in Gwadar, you see the Red Sea lanes, and all that. You see which are the two countries which are acting here, India and USA. To that extent, I think there's a realization in USA that they need India to handle the Indian Ocean, where USA can, with Australia and Japan, can handle the Western Pacific. So to that extent, I think there's a very important role for India. And at the end of the day, there's also the dragon in the room. The second thing is the Indo-U.S. strategic partnership, which is fundamentally, apart from everything else, has a heavy China slant to it. And we also have to understand that India is considered as the net security provider in the Indian Ocean region. And for regional balance and for global balance, USA needs India. As USA is winding down the Ukraine war and the Gaza war, Israel-Gaza conflict, it needs India to, and as it shifts its focus towards China. It's not only a matter of just defense technology and arming ourselves. It needs India. When you look at it from the Chinese point of view, the Chinese say that they are facing 4 fronts. The first front is, interestingly, the Korean Peninsula. The second is the Taiwan area, and third is the South China Sea, and fourth is India. And China has done its best now to step away from the fourth front so that it can concentrate on the other 3 fronts. Okay. And to that extent, China is aware of what's happening. And China is fully aware of the, meetings which are going on between India and USA. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of talk within China that so far whatever Trump has done has been indirectly aimed at China, whether it is the Panama Canal or it is Greenland or it is winding down the Russia-Ukraine war or it is Gaza, where China has been completely, made insignificant in the West Asia peace process, or its deal with India, or for that matter, even in Taiwan. Everyone says, look, the Trump presidency doesn't have much interest in Taiwan. But interestingly, yesterday, there was a freedom of navigation movement of an American destroyer through the Taiwan Strait. There's an Australian reconnaissance plane which has been claimed by China as having intruded into Chinese airspace. So the focus in Taiwan is also there. So China is very clear, notwithstanding what Mr. Trump says. They're looking at what he does, and what he is now doing with our Prime Minister will not escape their attention. And the very fact that four of Mr. Trump's senior advisors, right, like you rightly said, Mr. Vivek Ramaswamy, Mr. Elon Musk, and Mr. Elon Musk coming with his entire family, is significant. Mr. Tulsi Gabbard and Mike Walsh meeting won't escape China's, viewpoint. And, like the ambassador was saying, tariffs are an issue. Defense deals are an issue. These are tough negotiations. I was involved in the M777 negotiations. It took 6 years for us to sign finally and get the guns to India. So it's not going to be easy, but the focus is there. I mean, we shouldn't lose sight of it. And India's role in this is there. And at the end of this, I expect by tomorrow morning, Indian Standard Time, there is going to be a statement which meets both requirements.
Let's hope so.
Otherwise, there won't be this much of importance given to Prime Minister Modi's visit.
Absolutely. We're all hoping for good sense to prevail by the end of it. Nobody's saying this is an easy task, and you rightly pointed out why exactly this is not going to be an easy task, but there is some room for India to constantly make those offerings. I was reading about bourbons and pecans, that, those taxations and those duties, those levies are keeping those from Indian consumers here back at home. The Californian almonds, that's also something that, people here in India, the demand isn't as much, but hey, a lower tariff is a lower tariff. And I think when you're talking to a businessman on the other side, and that's what we've been talking about, that this is all about business. Elon Musk's a businessman, President Trump's a businessman, and why Mr. Modi will have to, turn that switch on from a politician to a businessman when he's trying to strike that balancing act. We're going to slip into a quick commercial breather here. Some development and movement outside the Blair House, Aditya, with what we're also picking up, a protest by the Bangladeshi Hindus that also took place. We're going to touch upon that facet right on the other side of this quick commercial breather. Don't go anywhere.
मैं और आप, हम अलग कहाँ हैं?
Gill on 199.
अपनी अपनी मंजिल पर हम दोनों की नजर है, और उसके लिए हम जी जान लगाकर मेहनत करते हैं। पर कभी कभी
He's out on 199.
मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
Hello everyone, this is Papon and I am coming to Dilwalo Ki Dilli this Valentine's Day to perform for the World Travel and Tourism Festival.
Prime Minister Modi in the USA, rolling coverage right here on News9. We've been decoding it, peeling it layer by layer. What happened with Tulsi Gabbard, the meeting with NSA Mike Waltz, then Elon Musk, his entire family came in, and now Vivek Ramaswamy. That meeting is expected to take place. But what is going to be on the agenda? What can Indian diaspora in the United States expect? Because they're watching this very closely as Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump, that crucial bilateral is going to take place moments and hours from now. But what we're also picking up is that at the iconic Blair House, which by the way is the president's guest house where all the official dignitaries and the invitees stay, this is also where Prime Minister Modi has been lodged. A protest by the Bangladeshi Hindus took place right outside the Blair House in Washington DC, and this is just hours before the scheduled meeting between Prime Minister Modi and US President Donald Trump. Now the protesters gathered to demand the removal of Muhammad Yunus, calling for action against him. Some of those exclusive protest shots right there on Pennsylvania Avenue. This is just across the White House, and this is also where the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been lodged, holding banners and chanting slogans asking Yunus to step down. Visuals on your screen. Sandeep Unithan, editor, News9 Plus, with us on the broadcast here. Aditya Rajkol, he's going to soon be with us, and all those expert panelists that are continuing to be with us. Lieutenant General Shankar is also with us on the broadcast. We're decoding what it means for Indians back at home, and of course the Indian diaspora when we're looking at the global new global order that's coming to the fore. Sandeep, before I come to you for your thoughts, we've got some reactions as well coming from Pennsylvania Avenue. Let's listen in.
We coming from Bangladesh, for support for Bangladesh. We want justice. We are happy in Bangladesh is everybody. A lot of people is killing people, and nobody is security over there. So it's very bad in Bangladesh right now. No, and house. Lot of people is killing now every day, every morning, every night, every second.
Well, Sandeep, you heard the man over there. Of course, very emotive. A lot of sentiments attached to what's been prevailing in Bangladesh over the better part of the last 6 months now, ever since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. But Muhammad Yunus dispensation, many saying we're looking at a different Bangladesh post that August uprising. But now, Blair House, Prime Minister being there, it's an issue that was being raked up at different places, but the significance of Pennsylvania Avenue and a protest being carried out over there?
Kabir, extremely significant, this protest at Pennsylvania Avenue. And let's not forget that it was President Donald Trump who raised the issue of the crackdown on minorities inside Bangladesh in November while he was campaigning for the presidential elections. He actually mentioned the fact that he was deeply concerned with the kind of treatment that was being meted out to minorities in Bangladesh, the Christians, the Hindus, and the Buddhists. And this has unfolded in the last 6 months. Ever since Sheikh Hasina left Bangladesh on the 5th of August, there's been a kind of unofficial, what can I call it, a pogrom against minorities in Bangladesh. Their houses have been targeted, they've been killed even, they've been thrown out, their businesses have been attacked, and this is, this kind of thing has been unleashed against minorities there to say that they are not welcome. And the reason ostensibly is because they are supporters of the Awami League, which is the party that ruled Bangladesh when Sheikh Hasina was there. And of course, you had that very horrifying visual a couple of weeks back, Kabir, of the house of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman being destroyed. And the message to the minorities in Bangladesh seems to be that if we can do this to the father of the nation, that is Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, think what we can do to you. And this is horrifying actually in the last 6 months. And all of this is being, presided over by Muhammad Yunus. And that is the irony that a Nobel Prize winning economist who's, once tipped as the best man to rule Bangladesh, before he ran into difficulties with Sheikh Hasina. And this is the kind of regime that he's been presiding over in the last 6 months, where minorities feel unsafe. And I completely get the sentiment of the people who are protesting out there. They must all have families back home in Bangladesh. who are terrified, who are afraid of their lives, who've been hiding, who cannot voice their opinions freely. And this seems to be the ideal place for them to get the attention which they're rightly being given today morning in Washington, D.C., Kabir.
Right. General Shankar, how about you come in on this as well? Delayed elections, and right from the posters that you see, this is not against, the government. I think this is targeting the chief advisor, Dr. Yunus itself, and only this is only against Muhammad Yunus. It seems to be he's at the center of this, storm, the center of the Bangladeshi diaspora in the United States and their ire.
Look, the way I look at it, I call what's happening in Bangladesh as unarchy, not anarchy, unarchy. Right? Yunus is heading an illegal government because there is no scope in the constitution for this government to continue. Beyond 90 days, it's become illegal, and he wants to carry out reforms. It's not only that the current dispensation or the students or the radicals and the Jamaat have got together to radicalize the nation as a whole. That's the worry. In addition to bringing down Bangabandhu's house, there's a program called Operation Devil Hunt, where they're completely exterminating activist by activist, everyone in the Awami League. They've already arrested over 1,300 people. So they're very clear about what they're doing. And if you see that, very anti-India. And so this protest rally happening there is only a natural outflow of what's happening within Bangladesh. And we need to understand we have a problem in Bangladesh. Increasingly from what happened in the first week of August to now, the country is completely gone anti-India. The sentiment on the street is anti-India and radical by nature. So we have to have a method of how do we deal with Bangladesh. So far, it's now evident that the toppling of Sheikh Hasina, the deep state had a hand in it. That's coming out in black and white almost. Now we need to restore the situation back to normalcy. And for that, I think this is an opportune moment. The India-U.S. relationship and the platform has to have a clear understanding as to how to deal with Bangladesh. What I'd expect is that I'm sure our Prime Minister will take this up with the President, because this issue was discussed between the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and Dr. Jaishankar in their first meeting itself. That itself found a resonance in Bangladesh. People in Bangladesh were asking, why are they discussing Bangladesh in their first meeting itself? And from then to now, the situation has gone bad, even worse. So I expect a talk of this, and I think what my expectation is that, or my wish is that, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi come to an understanding as to how to deal with Bangladesh. And the best way to do that is let India be in the forefront of how to handle Bangladesh and normalize the situation there, with USA playing a supportive role, like it happened when the Sri Lanka financial crisis happened. USA gave us the leeway to see through the whole thing and restore the situation. So we have a framework already there. And so I think it's very important that we get into such a framework and, we take the whole thing forward. This will also set, such a framework and such an action will also set a baseline for India's position in this region, not only in the South Asia or even in the Indian Ocean region as a whole, and will send a strong message to people around, including to Pakistan, because the increasing connect between Pakistan and Bangladesh is a reason for worry for all of us. The fact that ISI had gone right up to Narangpur team, and the Chinese are now being allowed to operate in Teesta for taming the river and things like that, is not a happy sign for us. And we need to...
Coming from Pakistan to Bangladesh, we're looking at, joint military drills between Pakistan and the Bangladeshi army. You're right when you raise all those points as well. And I think we need to add Bangladesh to this long list of issues that, we've already spoken about today as well. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to look for some closing comments now because Ramaswamy meeting, it seems, is almost done. Elon Musk is out of the picture now. The meeting is what I'm talking about. You've got NSA Mike Waltz and Tulsi Gabbard, 4 prime meetings that have already taken place. Sandeep, even as we're looking to wrap up this segment, we're learning of the Senate confirming Kennedy, the anti-vaccine supporter, vaccine skeptic, as the health secretary, and Kash Patel. Now, of course, Kash Patel, more of a pro-India voice and face than Kennedy. But needless to say, Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, Kennedy, Mike Waltz, they're all China hawks to start with as well.
Absolutely, Kabir. As I mentioned, that this is possibly the first White House in a long time which is really packed with pro-India and anti-China hawks. And these are not only people of Indian origin, they're also, as you mentioned, Peter Hegseth and all the others who mean well for India, who've spoken out for India in the past. They've had some very pro-India statements as well. And the point that I was making earlier, Kabir, is the fact that what we're seeing in the United States right now is a kind of a reset where you have a significant number of the establishment, the current ruling establishment, which said that the most terrible mistake the United States made in the last 3 years was to allow, firstly, that war in Ukraine to happen, with Russia invading Ukraine 3 years ago, and consequently supplying Ukraine with weapons, allowing that war to continue, and forcing Russia into an alliance of sorts with China. And that is something that a lot of people said they should have avoided. And you have this administration now that has come to power, the Trump administration, which is trying to wean Russia away from China. And this would be one of the biggest resets in recent years. The last such thing I could imagine was in 1972, when Nixon went to China, that historic meeting with Chairman Mao Zedong, where he brought the Chinese onto the U.S. side. China and the Soviet Union had fallen out in 1957. So in just 12 years' time, you saw the United States taking advantage of this rift, going in and grabbing China out of the Soviet Union's bear hug. And today, more than 50 years later, you're looking at a similar scenario where you have President Trump throwing the gauntlet down and asking President Putin to stop the war in Ukraine, and in return for friendship, peace, and a possible visit to Washington as well, which is what has been promised in the last couple of hours. So you're possibly looking at another huge reset of the kind that we saw in 1972. And the aim of this administration, Kabir, is, as you said, they're all China hawks. They know the real threat, the real dragon in the room is China, and they would all want to take away from all these wars in Europe, in West Asia, and focus on that main threat, which for them is China. Because China presents a military, a technological, and an economic threat to the United States dominance of the world in a way that the Soviet Union could never be. The Soviet Union was always a technological superpower. It was a military superpower. It was never an economic powerhouse. It was an economic basket case by the end, and that's the reason the Soviet Union broke up. But China represents a threat that the United States has never faced in a long time. You're looking at a country that is, an industrial superpower, a manufacturing powerhouse, and now it is actually being forced into a corner with a resource superpower, a military superpower like the Russian Federation, which is a resource superpower which has all of the natural resources that Trump has publicly said that he wants from China and Greenland and all of the other countries. The biggest mistake that the United States seems to have made in the last couple of years is to allow this dragon bear hug to take place. And now the focus of this administration, Kabir, and this is what you're going to see in the next couple of months now, starting from this month, is to get Russia, the Russian Federation, away from this bear hug with China, Kabir.
All right. General Shankar, over to you for your closing comments as well. Mr. Modi, Donald Trump, their warm relationship, we've spoken about it all, and the two leaders have called each other their friends. But Trump has criticized, India for its high tariffs, and India is the biggest source outside of Latin America when we're talking about unauthorized immigrants. Donald Trump calls them aliens. Will this visit now bring the India-U.S. relations to another level, to the next level, or those, teething issues, those lingering problems are likely to continue?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I go with what Sandeep has said just now, largely. But I'll just put it in a different manner. Everyone says Mr. Trump is transactional and he is looking for profit and things like that. But if you look at it, all his actions have been strategic in nature. And the focus is very clear. The focus is China. China has emerged as a pacing competitor to USA and has threatened US hegemony as no other country has done so far, as Sandeep has brought out. So he's very clear. He's expanding his influence or consolidating his influence on his home front in the Americas, North and South America, Greenland, Canada, Panama, Colombia, all that. His signals are very clear, right? And he's also defusing, out of the three conflicts, two of them, Russia and Gaza. He's already pushed China out of the Middle East. Virtually their influence is marginal out there. And the only big power, right, the only big power which is stable, which is slated to grow fastest, whose economy is slated to grow fastest with such a huge population and a market is India. So he has to come to India. I mean, let's look at it. They have no doubt about it. I don't think we also have doubt about it. Neither does China have a doubt about it. That's why China is doing its very best to how to break the India-U.S. partnership. So overall, these irritants of tariffs, defense deals, all will be there. But the larger issue of the defense cooperation, if you look at it, everyone says Quad is not militaristic. But have a look at what it has done. The amount of military exercises which India and US have done, and through the Quad platform, has been tremendous.
Quad was also the first meeting, General. Quad was also the first meeting, right on the 21st of January. That was the first meeting. So you're again right. These may be bargaining chips, but by the end of it, tackling China seems to be one of those prominent points. We're really running out of time here, General. If you could really wrap up your thoughts.
Yeah. So I think, and the fact that the Quad summit is to be held in India, which is very important. So there's a military aspect to this entire the defense deals. So I have had experience in this one major deal with of the M777. If we are tough, we'll get what we want. We might get it a little late, but we will get what we want.
All right. You know what, General? We're going to leave it there. This has been a riveting conversation. General Shankar, Sandeep, many thanks for joining us here and helping us really decode all that there is to decode, from trade, tariffs to immigration to the defense framework. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what that joint, press conference is going to look like. And even as Prime Minister Modi, he's wrapping up his initial visit to the United States. The key takeaways from this diplomatic engagements are going to be coming out into the focus. What are going to be some of those trade tariffs that Donald Trump is talking about, reciprocal or not? Very interesting developments. Crucial Modi-Trump meet that is on the cards. Many thanks for watching this episode. News and top developments right from the Blair House to Washington, D.C. will continue here on News9. Don't go anywhere.
मैं और आप, कोई फर्क नहीं है हमें।
6 needed of the last ball.
जब ताक लेते हैं अपनी मंजिल को तो उसे पाने के लिए कमर तोड़ मेहनत करते हैं, पर कभी कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच
हाउस इज नॉट इन योर बजट सर, सॉरी,
रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people. Matter is now more about faith of the millions.